our April Sanga. We're so grateful and ecstatic and enthusiastic to have you all here with us today. And today we have a very special guest speaker with us, Sarvamangala Devi, tuning in all the way from Australia, actually. And we're so eager to hear from her today. She's going to be speaking on it's personal and how the process of bhakti is a mystery until one engages in it. And we can say so much about Sarvamangala Dasi, but she was born in the UK, actually, in Manchester, and she is a initiated disciple or student of Prabhupada. And she was initiated by him in 1971 and then lived in temples for 15 years after that. That's a long time learning all the different aspects of bhakti yoga. And she spent a lot of time in India also. And she wrote and directed many devotional dramas, which I find particularly interesting. I would love to talk to you about that sometime. And later in life, she studied the creative arts and therapy and worked therapeutically with youth who had a history of abuse, offering workshops in various government and community organizations. And she still actually offers workshop to support personal values and people's spiritual practices. And as I mentioned earlier, she now lives in Sydney, Australia with her husband, and she's constantly sharing these beautiful teachings of bhakti yoga with the community. So we'll share the way that this session will work, just so everyone is aware. Is I'm going to now turn it over to Sarva Mangala, and we'll hear from her for a while, and then towards the end, she'll ask us 2 to 3 questions, and we'll go into breakout rooms to discuss in small groups to make this session a little bit more interactive, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So if anyone has any questions that come up for them during the presentation, you can go ahead and put those in the chat directly to Leela DD, who will be then receiving them and asking those questions to Sarvamangala at the end. And then just the last 5 minutes, we'll make some announcements for our upcoming Sangas and Urban Devi news. And without further ado, I will stop talking so that you all can hear from the glorious Sarvamangala Devi.
Who's that? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everybody. It's a bit off-putting having such a glorious introduction, but I'm here somehow or another. And thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a mix anticipating this because it's always exciting to meet people who are practicing bhakti and interested in this, developing their spiritual life. So here we are. Hello. Here we are all together somehow or another, thanks to the internet. Amazing. It's really nice to see everybody. And of course, I can see some of my old friends, wonderful friends. So, Monikini, not seen you for a while. Cheryl Richardson, Sachimata. Anyway, thank you for everyone I don't know and hope we'll get to know each other better. The promise of it for me, it's personal, is that we are all connected in our practice. We're all part of Krishna, but individuals. And I'm sure you've read a lot of things like that, but it's pretty core thing that bhakti yoga is practically the only yoga that deals and involves relationship. And relationship, as you know, means reciprocation. Bhakti yoga offers us a very personal experience. Why did I choose that topic? Because I guess it's when we choose to, or somehow end up speaking to others in this way, I find that our core values are what present, what's really valuable to us. So I suppose that's why we sometimes feel a bit nervous, because you're opening the door to your own heart to everybody and explaining what's kept you afloat and what's really meaningful to you. And even though it's a bit scary sometimes, it's always exciting taking a leap, isn't it? I always feel like to learn something new or to go forward, you have to somehow go into the unknown. And it's the greatest adventure. Krishna consciousness is such an adventure. And it's humbling in one way, but very empowering to admit that uh, you're a novice, you're learning. You can't really learn anything, can you, unless you're willing to understand that there are some things you don't know and that you'd like to find out. So Bhagavad Gita, you've probably all got a Gita or heard of Bhagavad Gita. I'm sorry that I don't know you very personally yet. So I don't know, I can see your faces, I can see some people smiling, some people, I can see you a little bit. And I trust that by the end of our meeting, we'll have a sense of connection. It's very nice to be able to see you. You feel like at least you have some sense of who you're talking to. So for me, being a bit of a too much in your face person sometimes, as some of my friends will testify to, it's personal, it is important to me. I'm quite an emotional person. I've always liked drama and connecting with people in comedy, reviews, and putting on things like that, the theatre. So for me, personal reciprocation and connection and the whole drama of relationship is very important. Drama sounds like a negative thing sometimes. Drama, like, oh, this is just a big drama, like you're creating something that's a bit ambivalent. But life's a workshop, really, isn't it? You're learning all the time, and it has so many elements. So I'm very excited to be here, and just the thought of meeting you was irresistible, because you're interested in spiritual life and you're practitioners on the path. So that makes us a kind of group, even though we haven't personally met. I can see Dara smiling. Dara is someone that I do know in Sydney, and Yogita is here, I think. Are you there, Yogita? Oh, there you are. Yogita and Dara teach yoga, and they meet a lot of people, and somehow they're sharing what they've learned in Krishna consciousness, and they're sharing the mantra, and they're carrying the light. We've been studying Bhagavad Gita, reading books by our founder Acharya. Founder Acharya means the person who started the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. It's a society. It's not just an organization. We need to be organized, and we need people to organize things like this. But a society suggests interaction of people. And right from the beginning of my experience in Krishna consciousness, I was told that Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, the founder of our society, said that we would be stronger if we were in connection with others, with like-minded people on the spiritual path. And he likened that to how it would be harder to break a bunch of bamboo sticks than just one stick. So association with others on the path and reciprocation gives us strength. And that's why I suppose we're all excited to see each other, people who know each other, because the association of like-minded practitioners, over time, you see how devotion has really brought out their inner beauty. And it's very encouraging. And that is based on love, really. We develop love and trust. It's not just a sentimental thing, but it's an innate symptom of the soul. So before coming into the Society of Devotees, I was always thinking, why do people talk about the soul? What is the soul? It sounded like something you keep up on a shelf, and when you die, you get it, and then you go somewhere else. And that somewhere else was a very unclear thing. But the soul, gradually, one learns more. What's the use of getting involved in a learning process if you don't actually imbibe something and get a sense of something gradually and proportionately to your effort over time? So the soul is not something on the shelf. We are the soul. That's our identity. It's a spiritual identity. And this process is so personal that we're also companioned by Krishna. The divine person is in our heart. So we have a very good traveling companion on the journey, that we're heard and seen and supported by Krishna and Krishna's devotees. And that term devotees is a very, very broad term, very broad term. It's not that one has to be proving oneself to have done this, done that, be down on everything. The moment your interest arises and you have a desire to find out your personal identity and place in the devotional world, as soon as you have that interest, there's immediately reciprocation from within the heart. That's not a sentimental thing. Sentiment, there's nothing wrong with sentiment. I once got a little note from Srila Prabhupada. I had written him a letter, and I had only been around Krishna consciousness for a very short time. It was quite a funny letter. When I reread it, I thought, oh my gosh, that's so funny what I wrote. But Prabhupada wrote back a little note saying, thank you for your kind sentiments. And I think it's such a lovely way to see others, to appreciate their sentiments. And added to our deep desires and sentiments, we have knowledge available from the Bhagavad Gita and from so many Vedic literatures that have been made easy for us to understand by the grace of a spiritual teacher who's giving his all, and went to America, as you probably know, at the age of 70, not knowing anybody, just having one contact. So it just shows what you can do from not knowing and coming into knowing. And it gives you courage. Now I'm 73 and I can relate more to what it must have been like to go on a boat with not knowing anybody where you're going and hoping to share Krishna consciousness with anyone who is interested. It's a pretty big do. So our companions and associates do give us courage in that way. So what is the practice, and what are the personal, what part does personal play? A very big part, because we are all persons. And what do we have to offer but our personal selves and what we want to give? One saying I heard recently is, "We live to give," which is a nice motto. So when I was thinking of coming, my personal response to the invitation was mostly based in my own values, and to speak from my own personal experience, things that I relish, and what you can do with your own particular nature. Everyone is an individual, and everyone has the opportunity just to be that individual and voluntarily and spontaneously offer who they are. Because the soul is so bright, each individual soul is so bright. We may have to break through so many things. We've been around in the material kind of atmosphere for a long time, and we become conditioned in different ways, and ways that often embarrass us, or we may feel we don't have very much to offer. Or on the other hand, we may think we know it all, which is, then we need to kind of be able to see what we might need to learn, and that will be revealed. Revelation plays a huge part in our personal journey because of the fact that Krishna is in the heart and he knows everything about us. If you haven't had that experience, don't worry. I know when I first went to a temple, I felt immediately at home. It was a very welcoming atmosphere, but I didn't get a lot of things that were happening. And because my personal experience was a joyful one, it was, the kirtan was absolutely beautiful. There were so many things that felt familiar somehow and made you at ease. There were so many connections with people that felt real. And after searching for truth and wisdom and identity in this life, and often, most of the time, not finding it and wondering, well, where is truth? What is truth? How can I fit into a place with people who are searching for these things that I think are important, but I don't really understand very much? It's a very kind of hazy idea that I had. And somehow or another, an opportunity arises because of your desire. Desire is the kind of bedrock for learning and for knowing. And desire is actually a symptom of the soul because it's not up on a shelf. It's the active principle in us. That's why the body's alive, because of the presence of the soul. When we leave, we being the individual souls, when we leave, of course, all that's left is a material body. It doesn't do anything because the active principle's not there. So in my journey, I was searching, and there was some frustration at not being comfortable in various situations. And there were things that I loved. There were things that seemed fun, mostly didn't last, temporary fun. And that raised questions. It's not that it was a totally negative experience. It's just you realize that's not what I'm really looking for. And you keep going, you don't quit. you keep going and you keep searching. But there's a kind of boredom factor when you haven't, you keep going through the same old process and not finding what you're looking for. So the people I was hanging out with in my younger years, it was mostly seekers, but people have very different ways of seeking, and sometimes it leads you into a lot of trouble. So I was very fortunate that somehow or another, I ended up in another boring situation out in the country. When we were in the city, we wanted to go to the country. When we were in the country, we thought, I think I want to get back to the city. And then one day I was in the country and I read a book. I found a book because the same old thing was going on in the country as the city, and I was feeling a bit bored. So I picked up a book that probably a lot of people read who are around my age or maybe younger, by an American guy called Bhakti Das. He was an American boy who went to India and met a spiritual teacher. And so I was flicking through the book, not concentrating too much. But at a certain point, what caught my eye was, if you're looking for a spiritual teacher, just meditate upon him sitting just above the level of your eyes and ask him to come to you. Pray to him to come to you. So I wasn't much of a meditator. I'm quite a passionate person, but I did it, and I asked the spiritual teacher, please, could you come into my life? 1 week later, I happened to be seeing a friend off in London. I travelled up from Manchester to London, where I had lived previously and worked. Used to work at the BBC in London, trying to get into the drama world. And so there I was in London, and there was a festival in the park, the Rolling Stones. I didn't get to it, but the Rolling Stones famous song, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, was something that used to spook me a little bit, because when you're looking and you're not finding, you think, well, where is that reciprocation? Where is that thing that I really hanker for, that I yearn for? So I just decided to hitchhike back to Manchester. A lot of us used to hitchhike in those days. It's not very safe. I had a few narrow escapes, but still I did it. And I ended up in a car with a bit of an ominous looking man with a big moustache, and who said that he was also going to Manchester. And I wasn't quite sure about how safe I'd be. And we're driving along. I'm sharing my personal story because it is personal. We're driving along, and suddenly I noticed we're going past the macrobiotic restaurant that I used to visit a lot when I was in London, and where I actually first heard the Hare Krishna mantra from the devotees who were first starting the temple in London. And sometimes used to serve them a bit of mood tea, which was probably a good thing to do, because if you can get a chance to serve others and to serve devotees, it's very auspicious, actually. So I glanced across the road, and who did I see but a devotee man in robes? It was Shamsundar. Some of you may know him. Unfortunately, the traffic lights were on stop. And then I looked at this man with the big moustache, and I looked across the road at this devotee, and I thought, I'm getting out of here. And I ran across the road, and I approached this devotee and I said, please, could you take me to the temple? I've always wanted to go. And I didn't even realize that I'd always wanted to go to a temple. But I guess something in my heart knew there was a temple where you could find some truth and some association of devotional people. So kindly he took me there, and Srila Prabhupada was there 1 week later after my prayer. So I wasn't really taken to praying. I had kind of gotten over religiosity and praying and all those kind of processes that I didn't find very appealing anymore. And there was this sense that there was an inner truth that you could discover. So that was a direct personal reciprocation as far as I was concerned. And it indicated to me that there was something happening, that there was the yearning I had was being reciprocated with. And I felt immediately very much at home. And then, of course, there were a lot of other people there who were also on the path, seekers of truth. And that kind of association is an umbrella that we all can take shelter under with each other. I don't think I would have gotten very far on my own. My desire carried me to that point, and Krishna's kindness by reciprocating. You can imagine if someone is actually in your heart, they know a lot about you. So at every point in my life now, I feel like that personal presence of Krishna is tangible. Not that I feel it all the time, because I'm just an ordinary person. My husband always laughs when I say, I'm just an ordinary girl from Manchester. But I think it's good to remember your roots so you don't get all puffed up with false pride that you're, that you've made it. Because you're on the journey, and there's lots of challenges. And it's good to remember that you're still in the learning process for sure. So I guess because of Krishna, and I was interested in drama, and Shakespeare said the whole world is everything on this world's a stage, I came to firmly understand, I guess to some extent, the understanding I had was firm that Krishna's controlling the show. He's managing the show. And I think that's kept me afloat a lot, because we all have challenges on the spiritual path. There are very individual challenges, because we are all individuals, and no two people are the same. A lot of people look alike and think alike, but each one of us is a unique individual soul. And we have a unique individual relationship with the Supreme. A reciprocal relationship, as I say. So I'm sure he's present in many different ways. You may have, I'm sure to some extent, we've all experienced the presence of the divine in our hearts, in our life, in various ways, unexpected ways. It may be through hearing the Hare Krishna mantra or mantras of worship, or Did you know worship is from an old English word that means something to do with a ship that's worthy, a ship that's worthy to carry you, I suppose, and carry a good cargo. So a lot of these terms like worship and uh, I kind of got tired of, you know, in the kind of religion kind of context, because I wasn't really experiencing anything by the words. So we need action as well, don't we? We can hear the mantra, we can read philosophy, we can put it into practice in our daily life. And I think that's what really turned me around, that our personal practice isn't just a concept. It's not just a philosophical thought, but it's action in daily life and experience of what we're hearing. Listening and hearing are very important things. We learn something, and kind of by osmosis, it goes into that place of desire to learn and practice what we've learned. And then, as an individual, we bring it into our everyday life. We all have different lives. We all have different desires. So I later in life actually found a way to bring my dramatic tendency into a reality in my devotional life, or bring my devotional life, well, not just bring my devotional life into my drama, but bring my inclination into my spiritual life. Because it's personal, we all have our own nature, and that you don't have to aspire to be something else. What's actually happening in Bhakti is that our real self, our spiritual self, is manifesting. We're not imposing something artificial on ourselves. We're not agreeing to be brainwashed. We are uncovering our true nature, our spiritual nature. And in the meantime, whoever we are in this lifetime, that's what we got to work with. There was a famous English writer called Oscar Wilde, and he said, be yourself, everyone else is taken. So that's what you got to work with. So I was interested in psychology when I was younger, and didn't get into the psychology department at university. Later met the psychology professor, and he was an interesting man, and he gave me a job. And then later, I found a wonderful course using the creative arts in therapy, and that was right up my street. And what happened was I was working with very vulnerable people, young people mostly. Young people in care mostly was people that I work with. People had been abused and had a very difficult time, vulnerable people. And that's where my practice in Krishna consciousness led me and inspired me, because you can't meet vulnerable people by being a know-all. You have to be open to their experience. So again, it's very personal. You can't really get to know anybody, can you, if you think you know it all? So it enabled me to open my heart more, and to hold off on thinking I knew it. I knew everything about them. I knew why they had this. I knew why they'd done that, and all the kind of labels people get when they've been in very in trauma or very damaging circumstances. And so then you just have to, and I thought of, well, Krishna's been companioning us in our life. So if I can just meditate on that and try to be a companion to people in their vulnerability, that will inspire me, and that our Krishna will reveal what needs, Krishna will reveal and enable what's meant to happen in that therapeutic relationship. So you may have heard this phrase, if you've been reading any books, that we're not actually the doer. In one sense, we are, because our desire drives us, and we come to participate in things that we want to do. But if we can see that that empowerment comes from a divine source, life becomes much more enriched, because we're not limited just by just our experiences. Our experiences are important. In fact, if you have experienced vulnerability, it does help you connect with other people's vulnerability. If you have been frustrated in your search for truth, you can be more patient with others' frustration. And if you are a very strong person, you still have vulnerabilities, and it takes strength to confront them. It takes strength to meet your personal challenges. I have to keep track of the time because I'm rabbiting on and I don't know how long I've spent. Oh my goodness. So reciprocation is personal, and that's what's kept us going. Bhakti Yoga challenges impersonalism. It's all about personalism. And it's a bit of a battle against impersonalism because the whole world's saturated with it. If you've read Bhagavad Gita or seen something of Bhagavad Gita, it's a battlefield where Krishna, the divine person within the heart of Arjuna, is being his chariot driver on the battlefield. So Arjuna gets overwhelmed. He is full of doubts. We all have doubts. And the whole dialogue in the Bhagavad Gita is about doubt. So doubt is natural, and it's okay to have doubts. And then we question. And if we're sincere, we realize eventually, like Arjuna on the battlefield, whose chariot was driven by Krishna, who took a very humble position and just driving the chariot, that Krishna sometimes took Arjuna off the battlefield when he was overwhelmed, and he had a rest, he had a break. It's okay. It's okay to take a break. It's okay if you feel overwhelmed sometimes, or you don't, or you have a lot of doubt. But I always think it's better to trust your personal experience. There's one sloka in the Gita that is my favorite sloka that says that you get direct perception through personal experience. So trust your personal experience more than the doubts. The doubts are there and you can always question, but your personal experience of bhakti informs you. And at the end of the day, after having had that support from within the heart and the reciprocation from relationships with other like-minded people and from within the heart, we come to trust and realize that actually Krishna's been driving our chariot all the time. And that's a wonderful thing to know. I think maybe I've gone my time. Is that true? Am I out of time?
You're
I can't
great.
believe it. I
You're
can't believe it. I just feel like I repeated all the same things and didn't say anything I wanted to say.
This talk has been so absolutely enlightening and incredible, and everything that you have shared has been just so deeply soul touching. So please know that, and that is the personal. We're all going to trust that that is the personal experience we're having listening to you. So we were thinking, yeah, around this time, like 2:45, that maybe it would be a good time now to ask us the 2 to 3 discussion questions, and then we can break out into the breakout groups. How does that sound?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was going to suggest that when you get in the breakout groups, you just spend maybe half a minute or a few minutes to focus on one moment that you felt you were being spiritually connected to the Supreme, or when you felt the presence of Krishna in some way, in whatever way that was meaningful to you. Maybe share that with others and listen to others. If you can't identify a moment, you can just think what that feels like, and maybe you like to see if you would like to experience that. And is there a gift that you feel you'd like to offer in service? Something that comes to you naturally? You know yourself a little bit. You know what you'd like to offer. We all have a gift. Krishna doesn't let us come into this world like robots. We are the soul, and we have things that we can share and give to others. So if you'd like to share one tangible experience of Bhakti and how that's enlivened you and what reciprocation means to you, that's it.
Thank you so much. So, Leela Devi is going to put us into the breakout rooms now, and we'll stay in the breakout rooms and come back at 3:05. So we have
Okay.
20 minutes to discuss that in your groups, and then we'll come back for questions and answers.
Sounds interesting.
Okay, so the groups are going to be random. I'm going to pause this recording.
So thank you all. That was really special being in the breakout rooms with you all and hearing everyone's stories. It was just basically a tear-jerking session. It's so faith-giving hearing people's personal relationship with Krishna. So thank you so much for that. And I just feel life is completely different after that breakout session. And now we're gonna turn it over to Leela Devi. And if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask Sarvamangala Devi, please type them into the chat or send them directly to Leela Devi, and she's now gonna ask on your behalf your questions to Sarvamangala until 3:25.
Thank you so much. Yes, please type in your questions. And I want to see if Rukmini has any questions. You always have amazing, amazing questions.
Really? I was just going to type one in, but okay.
Well, you can just ask it.
Okay, I was going to type one in, but what I wanted to ask Sarvamangala was this, because sometimes people feel gobbled up by the institution. And how can I be an individual and offer my individual gifts? And how can I not be, be gobbled up by a big institution and have to feel like I have to be something I'm not, or I have to be all Indian, or I have to be all Vedic, or I have to be. How can I feel empowered to offer my gifts in authenticity and in humility, but my authentic gifts? How can I not be gobbled up?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. Oh, there's a number of things come to mind. Someone's in the rating room, Taruni Radhika. Okay. I think we have freedom of choice always. That's part of our constitution, that we're allowed freedom of choice. So we choose our association. We can respect others, wherever you go. You're on a train, in a carriage, there's all different kinds of people. You work for a particular place, there's all kinds of people. So all kinds of people will come into a society, in any society. And a society is different from an institution. But some people could get, like even in school, some people were institutionalized more than other people were, Some people, or a university, or anywhere you go, it's a state of mind. You are an individual, and you have to honor your own individuality, because you're eternally an individual, and you have things to offer. My husband always says this thing, that the institution's a delivery device for knowledge, the spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge, the soul is not a man or a woman or a particular religion, or it's who you are. And like I said, in this lifetime, we have certain maybe limitations and certain gifts. So birds of a feather flock together. You find your people, and that's available. That's available. And because somehow or another we decided, we came into this material world. Nobody forced us to be here. So this is the nature of the place. You meet with good and evil, with people that you can relate to, with control freaks, with all kinds of people you meet with. So don't think, oh, look, I went to the temple and there was a control freak on the door. That's their problem, and you survive, and especially also as women, there's an understanding, there's an innate understanding. We may have all had particular experiences with nice men and controlling men, and there's all different kinds of people. So really, once you've had a taste of chanting and a higher taste, and these are all transcendental experiences. Transcendental means it kind of lifts you above the mind and the workings of the mind. So we don't have to take it all on board. If people have attitudes and problems that we don't find helpful in our lives, so we have a choice. We don't have to associate with everybody. Even in Bhagavad Gita, it says, try to just approach a spiritual master and try to learn the truth. Just try to learn the truth. So it's not that you're meant to be on some big level. We're trying. One time we were doing a vegetarian restaurant in the most out of the highest unemployment rate city in England. And we were really struggling. And it was very difficult. And I was really having to struggle to get my rounds done because I didn't have anybody to wash up. I didn't have enough people to do the chop up. And I was feeling really bad about myself. And that night I had a dream. And Srila Prabhupada appeared in the dream. And I was feeling kind of down on myself and not achieving, like that's a big one. It's not just about achieving, but you want to do something, you want to give something, you want to offer something. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want. And Prabhupada in the dream, he said, thank you for trying. So that things like that, you're carried by your well-wishers, you're carried by your well-wishing teachers, your well-wishing friends, and Krishna's the friend of everybody, the dearest friend of everyone. So you go with the positive, you go with what works. Prabhupada said that one time, the best plan is what works. So, and what doesn't work, you're a free spirit, you're a free person. No one's forcing you to do anything. It's by your own desire that you've come into contact with this process. And we have some independence because we're reflections of Krishna, and our qualities are reflections of Krishna's qualities. Krishna is the supreme independent, and we have independence as well. So sometimes, when people get involved in Krishna consciousness, I think I'm a bit negative, but I kind of warn them about things that might trip them up and not get, not be very favorable, because you know that it's a mixed bag, and that's life in the material world. We've chosen to try and surrender something. If you want to, when you get something, you really want something, or you want a service, or you want to offer a service, or like even having to give a talk when you think, oh my God, exposure, and you have to surrender something when you're going for something. So you can, there's two ways of surrender, and you can either surrender in a battle where you're getting defeated, or you can surrender in love. And that's our process, surrender in love. So you need to surround yourself with, and sometimes you learn something when something's difficult. You can embrace that too. And Manjwari's nodding her head, and all her friends know she's had a lot of, this beautiful person's had challenges and difficult situations. We all do. And that's when you get to surrender sometimes more to Krishna. Please help me, and surrender to the mantra. So we can put a label on things, and the mind will say, this is real rubbish, don't stay around it. But if Krishna's in control, maybe, it's like when you're a mum and your kid's putting the hand in the fire, sometimes you have to smack them. Well, I don't mean beat them up, but, get their hand away from the fire. So difficulties we sometimes embrace too. But, Krishna's the controller, and you don't have to subject yourself to bullying or anything like that. And you can share that with people you trust. We once did a great workshop with kids with learning difficulties. Or they called it learning difficulties. They were just completely peed off with the education system mostly, and they made a puppet of a bully, of a person who'd bullied them, and explored their response to that. So it's sometimes useful to there's all different ways of dealing with things. You know, you can explore it. You can explore your resistance to institutionalization, and you know what you're getting from the delivery device and what you're getting from the people that you trust. That's important.
Thank you.
That's my angle and vision, anyway. You don't have to take it as.
Beautiful. Thank you.
We do have one question here. How would you explain to someone new to Krishna consciousness why we have faith in Krishna?
What is somebody who's inquiring into Krishna consciousness?
Yes. How would you explain to someone new to Krishna consciousness why we have faith in Krishna?
I don't know. I don't think I usually tell people that when they inquire why I have faith in Krishna when they're just going. I just try to see where they're at and what they have a taste for, and you know, you just try to fan the spark. And I think, but I think people get a sense of the presence of faith, and then when you get more intimate, then we'll share what works for us and what is the nature of our faith. Because it's an experiment, isn't it, really? You don't just kind of come into a temple and then you have faith. It's like when any experiment, you have to, you accept the controls of the experiment. And then you make the experiment, and then you follow the methodology, which isn't actually really rigorous. Like if somebody first comes, they might just want to have some food that's been offered to Krishna with love, and that will be the beginning of their faith journey. But it's very individual, so there's not one cap fits all. I don't think, you know, I don't have a script. I like improv more than scripted things. But we do have, we do know the rules of the game, and you know, like any improvisation, you have a construct. So we have the construct of the previous teachers in our line. We have things that back up our practice, and that there is a training, but it's not that, you know, we're setting a thing where after 1 week you have to know this, after 2 weeks you have to know that. It is very individual and very personal. And I think experience is a great teacher. You know, your own experience and the other person's experience, you come to value that. So they do the experiment. They kind of lock into some part of the methodology. Might be chanting, might be eating a lot, might be anything. There's so much on offer. And Prabhupada said, if someone comes to your home and they see how you live, and they think, oh, I'd like to live like that. So it's, I think you have to, you don't feel like you're the product, but there's something, if you've been practicing, that you're carrying the torchlight of knowledge, even if you're half lame and half blind. You've been given the torchlight of knowledge, so you can share it. So faith's implicit in that. And I think if you allow people, not that you are in charge of them, but if you step back, and this is something nice that Susan shared in about her practice in acupuncture, you have to have a space where you allow people to discover things at their own pace in their own unique way. And if you have some faith, that will be part of the relationship. It's and with some people you'll name it, and with other people it's just implicit that you've been conducting the experiment and you continue to be learning, and that is intrinsic in the process. Sorry, I didn't mean to knock faith, but I don't want to cram it down anyone's throat either. And sometimes these words have connections with people's experience in other, in religious institutions where they didn't find an answer. And with some people, faith is not a strange word.
Thank you so much. That reminded me of something you said earlier, where you said you can't really get to know anybody if you think you know it all. And part of the relationship with the divine is that we can't love someone we don't know. We can't have faith in someone we don't know. So it's just maybe sharing our the glories of him, right? Like he's so amazing, so that people do want to know him, and thereby their curiosity, and it becomes this process of they're using their own free will to inquire about this person that everyone else believes is so great, and then finds that faith that way. Yeah, that's just really nice. Thank you. Let's see. So there is another question, but we actually don't have time. We just are going to do our closing announcements. So I apologize for that. But if you come back again, then we can ask those other questions that were there. That would be nice.
And they put them on the chat and we can email.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We can actually put it on our WhatsApp group, and they can be answered that way, either in writing or in via voice memo or video or something like that. I'll actually take a picture of it so that we have it.
Sarvamangala, are you on our WhatsApp group?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'll email
Oh,
Sarvamangala.
maybe. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I joined something. I don't know what it was.
I'll email you and I'll get you on the WhatsApp group, and then we can place the
I
question.
think I just get the information about Urban Devi. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
great. We started here in Sydney. Yogita and Dara.
Amazing. 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 Yeah, so we'll get Sarvamangala Devi on the WhatsApp group so then we can answer the question on the
Thank
WhatsApp
you.
group. That sounds perfect. So again, thank you, Sarvamangala, for such an enlightening and joyful, just being in your presence. I feel so joyful because you have so much joy radiating from within your heart, and so much faith, and so much non-pretentiousness, like just real humility and this realness about you that is just absolutely contagious and makes me want to become your best friend and come over to your house and spend time with you and serve you in every menial way. So yeah, we have a few Urban Devi announcements. So our we're changing the time moving forward, actually. So it's going to be going to be one Sunday a month. Our next session is May 23rd with Mandakini Devi Dasi, who is with us today. And that's going to be May 23rd. And the time is now going to be from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the following month, June 20th, we have Dina Tarni Devi Dasi joining us for the month of June. And then July, we also, Rukmini, you just emailed me the other day lining up who's going to be there for July. It's going to be Shruti Rupa Devi Dasi. So
Wow.
we have some exciting
Yeah.
speakers coming up, and the time for all of those is going to be 12 to 1:30 p.m. And we're also going to be doing these breakout rooms from now on so that the sessions can be more interactive. So we're always going to have breakout rooms moving forward. So please join us. And also, we should, Leela Devi, do we have the link to join the WhatsApp group? If anyone wants to join the WhatsApp group, I'm just going to pull that up now. Okay, I'm going to post it into the chat. If anyone would like to join the Urban Devi WhatsApp group to get information about what we do, then I am putting this link right now into the chat. And that is the link to join there so that you can get updates and be part of our WhatsApp Urban Devi community. And then also, please, if you like, we all love Rukmini Walker so much, our Urban Devi founder. And she's on Patreon. She's on Patreon, Rukmini Walker on Patreon. And she is also on Facebook and on has a website as well. So if you want to follow Rukmini on Patreon and support her on Patreon, please do follow Rukmini Walker. And I think that's all of our announcements, unless Leela or Rukmini, you have anything to add.
I know, just thank you so much, Sarvamangala, for being here with us. And thank you to all of you for your beautiful presence. And thank you to Rukmini and Champakalata and Rajarani. Yeah, I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all these dear friends, dear young friends and old friends, and golden friends and silver friends, and such a joy to hear from such an authentic lover of Krishna, Sarvamangala. So thank you. We hope to have you back very, very soon. So love you so much. Thank you, Sarvamangala.